And good morning, everyone. It's been a while since I've done my own lives for such time for Working Class Australia, but I just also too want to acknowledge that I'm on the land of the Dja Dja Wurrung of the Kulin Nations, and I'm paying my respects to the elders past, present and future, and acknowledge that the struggle of those people is was an anti-colonial struggle and is still a current struggle today against imperialism and capitalism, and their struggle is part of a broader class struggle. So welcome aboard, everyone, and welcome to them as well. Black and White Unite to Fight. Well, I just wanted to make a comment about yesterday's anti-lockdown rallies. It happened. It was a worldwide event, and I believe, looking at a lot of the comments on social media, I think we need to put some perspective on this, and I think a lot of people just need to sort of let's take a step back. Let's take a deep breath. Let's see what's going on properly. And some comrades have made some good analogies as well, and I think that's good on them for doing that. And I think they've raised some very interesting points. I think most people are rallying because they've been disadvantaged by the whole lockdown process of the last 2 years, and just the way the New South Wales government especially has been handling lockdowns, or been handling this crisis from the start. They've been very blasé about it. They're more worried about keeping big business going and benefiting big business, and consequently this has left either people with small businesses, self-employed people who are casual, part-time, in some form or another precarious employment, even full-time workers that left high and dry. The simple reason is why this is deep down why they're rallying as such. It is particularly economic, because what they're seeing is hardship, where the very super wealthy, the 1% that seems to run the whole joint, I'm talking about the financial institutions, oil banks, the Eastern Establishment, the stock exchange, a whole lot, seems to be still raking in billions and trillions of dollars, while every ordinary people are suffering even further. Now, I think, look, in these rallies, yes, there were some fascist elements, and they're opportunistically trying to find recruitment amongst the crowds there. And of course, there was various conspiracy theorist groups as well, anti-vax. And I'm going to make it very loud and clear: I'm not anti-vax. I've been vaccinated. I encourage everyone to be vaccinated, and I would highly recommend talk to your doctor about that. Don't talk to me about it. Go and talk to your doctor if you have any further questions about the vaccine. So, I am not anti-vax, and I'm not a COVID denier. I think it's very deadly virus. But it's just the way the whole system overall has been handling this from day one. Now, last year here in Australia, there was obviously groups out there, and I've just talked to my girlfriend about it. There was obviously groups here that was organising a no rent day, or no rent strike. Obviously, a moratorium on rent. It could have been extended to a moratorium on paying back home loans as well, or any other debt as well. That could have expanded a lot further. But there were people generally trying to put alternate solutions, and just generally trying to lock people down. And when they end of it, they're still further heavier in debt because they've got no money now. Instead of them trying to dig into their superannuation, which in the long term will disadvantage them when they're in retirement, to try and pay for the costs of the virus, of these lockdowns, right through the whole process. And I mean, what I'm talking about, last year, for those of you around the world, the federal government allowed us to withdraw up to $10,000 out of our superannuation. Now, in the short run, that might have seemed helpful, but in the long run, in fact, you're disadvantaging yourself when you're in retirement, because it might sound like $10,000. That $10,000 multiplies by 10, 15, 20 times. So by the time you retire, you could be out by $100,000, $150,000, and you still have to work for even longer to try and make ends meet. That's just one angle to it. So there were people trying to organise alternatives to alleviate any costs and the pressures on working class people, poor people, low income people, whatever you want to call them, but even people who are self-employed. So a lot of people have been disadvantaged by this, and you can see now the anger has just escalated to such a degree. In Sydney in particular, I mean, the way that they've went about lockdown was just completely hopeless and interesting. I just want to a very interesting point how this came to Australia. It was actually brought by people who are quite well off, quite a lot of high-income people. They were allowed to roam free, first of all, the northern beaches of Sydney, North Shore, and also the eastern suburbs. Did they go to a full-on lockdown this time around? No, they didn't. They still packed out the beaches on weekends, still enjoyed the high life. They'll just because apparently they're just too good for everybody. They didn't need to be locked down, but instead they locked down the working class suburbs of the southwestern and western suburbs of Sydney, with heavily over policing and heavily over military as well. And a lot of these communities are migrant communities. They've got and they live closely with each other, very family orientated. So it's not just immediate mother and father, daughter and son, or two children. What I mean, it's also extended family as well. So consequently, the chances of the virus spreading increases. But this doesn't give an excuse to actually go out and heavily compress people either. I mean, some of the stuff is what I'm hearing from Sydney is over the top. And I think but also too, doesn't this say this is a double standard? Why are we heavily over-policing working class suburbs but not doing anything about where the well-off, the rich and all them live? And I was like, oh, gee, that's strange that. They can seem to leisurely go about what they do, but everyone else has to cop it and get tested every 3 days. Yes, we understand this is a very serious strain of the COVID, and I'm not going to deny that at all. I refuse to. But the reality is, at the end of the day, we've got to ask what ourselves is going on here. And deep down on it, I wanted to get to this point. There is an underlying class struggle that's happening here. Class struggle against the system itself. It's a class struggle within the health system. So who's actually benefiting from here? Who is actually benefiting from here? And I think that's the question we've got to raise. We have to raise to the powers that be. But also the other thing is what we do, how we're going to come up with some appropriate alternatives as well. So working class people, common people, and especially even those who are middle class who've lost their jobs, who've been pushed down amongst our ranks, what is various alternatives we need to come up with so we can alleviate any further crisis that happens to be thrown upon us? Because at the end of the day, who's paying for all this? The common working class people. And I don't mind using that term working class right across the board, because that's what it is. What's the relations to our means of production? We don't own it, we work. That's it. And there's only a very small minority of people that own it and they take. And that's where they take what we produce. So there you go. I tend to use that comment. I want to drive that home. But if you want, I can call it working people, if you like, as well, or working families. So the majority of the community is suffering. Now, what we've got to be careful of too is not fall into big business agendas, going back to business as usual. We have to live with COVID, or because what's happened, basically big business is represented through like organisations such as employer groups, Australian Industry Group's one of many. What they're trying to push for is a big business agenda. They're not actually pushing in an agenda that's a bit of benefit for the majority of people at all. They want to get back to reaping in super profits. And this is the issue we're coming with. So on the one hand, we've got a deadly strain of the COVID-19. On the other hand, we've also got big business trying to push their own agenda. But where's the working class agenda and all this? We should be actually putting some simple demands out there as well. Here's some alternatives. I think we should revive about a moratorium on paying rents and home loans or any form of debt. There should be a moratorium on paying any bills. There should be some sort of financial support, but better than what the government's giving out, what they currently are now. We had JobKeeper last year, which alleviated some of the pain, but not completely. It wasn't perfect. And look, we give credit. The unions did play a good role trying to get that up and running as well. But that's now dead in the water, and the government refuses to bring that back. We've got to look at all these types of financial assistance and other support and other social support services as well for working people, because the rates of mental illness are going up through the roof as well. People are what we call suffering cabin fever. They're suffering because of all that physical distancing. And I'm not talking about immediate metre and a half physical distancing as well. It's not that in the ability to actually be associated within your community and mix with your community and what other events and organisations you like to be involved in. So our cultural pursuits are being distorted, have been completely just stopped here as well. So we need to actually look about our own alternatives, what support systems we can put in place, and demand and be organised to demand to have these changes, not just these band-aid solutions that the capitalist system comes up for a capitalist problem. And they created this. They did create this, and what I mean is, while they've deteriorated our environment, they've stocked this planet up. Of course, we're going to see a lot more viruses, new ones coming into being as well. This is a naturally occurring one, so and we're seeing this further and further. Can the capitalist system come on top of this problem? No. Just look what happened under the feudalist system with the bubonic plague. Did they resolve it? No. They did not resolve the problems of the current consequences of the bubonic plague, and thereafter, neither can capitalism. And I think we do need to put socialism back on the agenda and revolutionary thinking back on the agenda again for Australia, because what we need for Australia as well, what we all need to struggle for, is a government of action that fights for working people. We need a government of action that fights for working family, for working people, and one that will actually step in a plan for Australia to rebuild Australia again. That means a massive infrastructure plan that's high-speed rail, renewable energy, all sorts of alternative energy, so we can essentially move away from fossil fuel as well, stop becoming so import dependent. We can have a large manufacturing base again, so we can be a lot more self-efficient and a lot more independent. This idea of free competition, what a crock of shit that is. Free competition, what does that benefit? It doesn't benefit ordinary people like us as well. So we need to start looking at all these things about rebuilding Australia, addressing the homelessness, start addressing all the other social ills that we can. But also, too, we should also look at having part of the solution is looking at a struggle for an economic Bill of Rights. You know, when we hear about some of these some of these lockdown people, they're going about human rights and freedom. Freedom from what exactly? I don't think they quite clearly understand what they're talking about there as well. Because when people talk about freedom, how can you be free when you're facing unemployment, poverty, destitution, homelessness, or any form of insecure work? That's not freedom. To be perfectly honest with you, we need to look at an economic bill of rights as well, a proper working class strategy and alternative we can put forward and we can struggle and rally around. I just wanted to throw that in there today. And as I said, look, I don't condone yesterday's rallies. I'm not, obviously this thing is deadly serious. I'm not going to condone a lot of the actions that was taken out by some of the protests yesterday. But for some of those that may come and that were involved in that and come and watch these videos later on, I'm going to reach out to you. Here's a choice. You've got a choice now. And I think we've got to have a clear and to understand clearly what you're really up against and what you're really angry at and what your concerns are as well. We're prepared to put that to you. There's many other comrades that are prepared to put that through to you. But once again, I want to make this absolutely clear. I'm not anti-vax. I'm not a COVID denier. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. Any of that. Definitely do not endorse what happened yesterday as well. And look, I will also warn for those people who are tending to lean towards those lockdown rallies and that type of thinking as well. Be careful, because there are also recruitment grounds for the fascist movements or neo-Nazi movements and any other type of opportunistic cult that's out there as well. They are out there certainly, and all they're there for at the end of the day is not for you, not to benefit society. They are there on another hidden agenda, which is pretty damn shady. So look, I'm going to leave it at that today. Look, once again, thank you, and I just want to make a further announcement next week. Myself and Helen and anyone else wishes to participate, we have another study from the We Are City Builders, and we're looking to change that. We're looking to not change it, sorry. We're looking to do some further study there as well. So We Are the Builders Australia Live, and actually I've got that in the title, so I might have to get that changed later on. I'll fix that up later on. So once again, thank you very much, and I do appreciate it. Take care of yourselves during this time. I know it's difficult, but reach out, start talking. Let's start talking genuinely about a proper alternative we can put forward. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Workers of all countries unite. Thank you.